Hello, Rank Squad, and welcome to your Champions League preview show here on Ranks FC. My name is Jack Collins, and I'm joined by the one and only Rank God, Mr. Sam Tai. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yes, mate. Back by popular demand. My predictions last week were so accurate. People just needed more of them. They just thought, Sam, you knew what was going to happen in these games. You called them so well. I must come back. You must give us more. In all seriousness, what an absolute mess. Jesus.
Yeah, no, but I mean, look, we can look at the games and this one's a little bit easier because you can look at what happened last time out and try to make some assumptions based on the way that those games panned out and the things that we now know, as opposed to just basing it on league form and previous games. So tonight we've got two games. Napoli host AC Milan at the Maradona. They're 1-0 down from that first leg at San Siro. And then Chelsea host Real Madrid 2-0 down after their first leg at the Santiago Bernabeu. We're going to start, I think, Sam, with Napoli versus Milan, because it feels like the more interesting of these two games, I think, at this point.
100%, yeah. It's really finely poised. To coin a phrase of our own, after the round of 16, 1-0 to the home side after one leg. It feels about even, doesn't it? So Napoli head into this game having, lost the first leg, drawn at the weekend, but they're within a goal of AC Milan, a team that they've been a lot better than this season over the course of the campaign. A team they have admittedly recently lost 4-0 to and then 1-0 to. So they've got to battle their own demons there, but they're within reach and this game is in balance and Napoli are the better team. So this one is perfectly poised.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first leg was a fairly balanced tie as well. It moved quite nicely between the two sides. There were spells, especially to begin with, where Napoli were right out in the lead. And it felt like they were the dominant force for at least the first 25-30 minutes, I think, of this one. But Milan crawled their way back into it and then got a goal. And in the second half, it was far more even of an affair.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, show us the XG timeline and we can sort of almost paint the picture. I mean, that immediate bump there right at the start, that's within the first minute. That's Kvara missing a really, really good chance. Like a really good chance. There's a total mix-up in the Milan defence within the first minute. Ball down the right and then crossed in. And then Maignan and Kjaer kind of get mixed up. They don't know who's going to claim it. It kind of scribbles out to Kvara, who should score. That's the early spike. Milan are very, very sloppy and slow for the first 15 to 30 minutes of this game. They are genuinely awful in possession. They can't find a way through Napoli's mid-block. Obviously, they didn't have a striker for this game and they played Elmas up front. And while we'll get to, Napoli's weaknesses up front in this game later, but what he did do really well was block passing lanes. So he was like flicking across the width of the pitch and he was blocking Milan centre-backs from really feeding the ball through. And you can see they're getting absolutely nowhere here. Now, it's around the half an hour mark where I think Rafa Leao bursts through. Actually, it's about 20 minutes. Bursts through, does a one-man counter, beats three men, and fires one just past the post. San Siro then erupts, and it energizes Milan, and they start to sort of make their way into the game. And you can see the little spike heading up to half-time, and then you can see another spike after the goal. And this is where they're really at it. And then they come out of half-time really flat. And in our post-game, I said, Jack, I think they settled for 1-0 here. They wanted to say, that's enough for us. Maybe we back ourselves in the second leg. Maybe we feel like we're defensively solid, but we're pretty happy with this. We're not going to push for a second. And you can see the literal flatlining from half-time all the way to 75. And the only reason they start to creep up again towards the end is that Napoli get a red card. And that's where the crowd then demands that they basically push on and try and get that second goal. They try that, they don't make it. And in the end, it looks pretty well balanced. But this is a game that in 15-minute chunks belonged to one or the other team. And at no point did they really go like head to head. It was always like, oh, you have your 15 minutes, then we'll have ours. It was a strange one.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously there was that flurry of chances for Napoli near the end. The couple headed over from free kicks and the like. But it does feel like this is nicely balanced. And it does feel like it's the tie that has everything in it. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be the most exciting, entertaining, enthralling game in the world this evening. It doesn't strike me as it's going to be, a 3-2 here. We're going to get a Champions League classic, but it does strike me as well poised.
I think the two teams will be too nervous, for it to become a classic. I don't think this will break into chaos because I think Milan know where their strength lies, which is in playing quite reactive football and, using Rafa Leao as that kind of counter-attacking spear, the one-man attack at times. And they know that they can block in and they can defend really, really well, and they can defend the box really well. Obviously, it all changes, though, and the nature of this matchup changes with Victor Osimhen returning to fitness. So obviously we're expecting Victor Osimhen to start this game. If he's even 50% fit, then he should. There's literally no reason why Napoli shouldn't risk it. He came on at the weekend and made his return to football after a little spell out. I think he hit the bar, didn't he?
He screamed one off the underside of the bar. I think the bar is still shaking. It was that good a strike.
Yeah, so it's he's ready. I think he's ready. He may not be fit enough for 90 minutes, but they're going to chuck him in. And, the nature of this Napoli attack really changes with and without Osimhen. So I've got a couple of pictures to compare and contrast. Does it matter which one Okay, we'll go with that one. So this is Napoli in the first leg without Osimhen. And I've taken out the headed shots because that basically means I'm removing like the ones from corners, from set pieces. And I want to show you what Napoli's genuine open play threat was in this game, which is pretty poor. The red dot on the left is Kvara after 30 seconds. He should score. The orange dot on the right, the top one of the two, is Giovanni Di Lorenzo trying to hook one towards goal in the aftermath of a corner, and Maignan tips it over the bar. Other than that, it's not great. There's not a lot of chance generation in positive areas, inside the box, inside the lines of the 6-yard box. There's obviously a fair few shots there from distance, which aren't particularly useful. This is not a very typical Napoli attacking performance. And one of the things you have to say about them this season is, as fluid as they've been and as many goals as they've conceived from different areas, sometimes you just need to chuck it in the box and let Big Vic throw his forehead at it. So we can show you Victor Osimhen's shot map from headers. Headers alone in Serie A and the Champions League this season. Look at the locations. Look at the amount of stars, which mean goal. There's at least 6 or 7 in there. He can win these duels. Napoli could not put the ball into the box in the first leg because Tomori and Kjaer are going to eat anybody there alive. Osimhen is a completely different animal here. And when Napoli kind of ran out of ideas, they weren't really able to go to plan B, which is chuck it in the box and let Vic attack it, because he's really good at that. And that's going to be the nature of this battle. If Kjaer and Tomori suddenly have to worry about the aerial battle, if they have to worry about where Osimhen is moving and these balls that are being crossed in, it completely changes the way they can defend. So Osimhen's sheer presence here is going to have a huge impact on how Napoli can attack, but also how Milan can think about defending.
Well, this is it. We've spoken about the fact that Osimhen is kind of a one-man wrecking ball, and you spoke about the fact that Rafa Leao can be a one-man counter-attack for Milan, and I completely agree. But we've spoken about the fact that Osimhen often occupies an entire back four. And actually, the fact that they didn't have to do that last week with Osimhen is something really, really important. And this from Amani, I think, is interesting because it leads on to your next graph. It says Calabria is going to crumble against Kvara today. Do not see him doing what he did last week on repeat. And I don't even necessarily think this is just about Kvara, and I don't think it's just about Calabria. I think what Osimhen brings back into the side, which is having to take defenders away from being able to back Calabria up, makes a massive difference. And look, you wanted to focus on Calabria a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he was amazing in the first leg, so I just wanted to give him his credit to start with. I mean, if Osimhen's not in the team, then plan A to stop Napoli is to basically bottle up Kvara as much as possible. And it's not simply a case of, the right back needs to play well, which obviously happened here. Everybody needs to play well because Kvara has this ability to sort of drift across the pitch and sort of like find a weak point in the defense and sort of then hit it. And he'll try over the top. He'll try coming short. He'll try dribbling at his right back, at their right back. If that doesn't work, he'll drift into the middle. Actually, didn't do that much drifting in the first leg. He did largely stick to the left, which surprised me a little bit. But it was obviously a changed front line because Elmas was up there.
Well, Elmas was drifting into those spaces as well, right? Because that's exactly what he doesn't offer as an actual number 9.
So the space may not be there because he's not occupying the centre back. So Kvara doesn't have the room to move underneath, maybe. And what this led to was a very traditional battle between Kvara on the left, as the left winger, and Calabria on the right. And Calabria, he did brilliantly. Like, look at all of those little dots. That's a tackle or an interception or a duel. He's been very busy. I was thinking he drank several cans of energy drink before this game to get himself up for it, and he really went in all guns blazing. And he managed to keep a lid on Kvara, which is something that people don't really do. Of course, the picture changes when Osimhen is dragging two centre-backs around, and the space inside of Calabria suddenly gets much bigger. Tomori can't step out and help and close that gap, close that space. It all changes here. So Calabria, yeah, I mean, I'd be stunned, away from home against Osimhen and Kvara if he has the game of his life again. But to be fair to him, he's done it once, so we can't rule it out a second time.
No. I mean, let's take a little look at the teams, shall we? Because there's some big absences here for Napoli. Now, these are just predicted lineups. We don't know exactly who's going to play. But there are some things that are notable. Yeah, there are some notable things. One is Juan Jesus in the middle there, stepping in for Kim Min-jae, who has not missed very many games for Napoli this season. Let's put it that way. And he's been very much the heart of this back pairing. And also, it'll be very interesting to see how Rachmani does, kind of stepping up into that leadership role with Kim Min-jae not there. And also Tanguy and Ndombele stepping in for Anguissa, who's obviously suspended after those 2 red cards. But the big thing is Victor Osimhen looking like he's going to lead that line, isn't it?
Yeah, that looks about right to me for Napoli. They changed a fair few players at the weekend. They've got the luxury of doing so. I keep making a thing of it, but obviously when I saw Diego Dema start, that they're rolling out the B team. But Milan did the same thing, bear in mind. I think all 10 of those players, outfielders, did not start at the weekend. They did a full rotation except for Magic Mike. So, they had to bring on Leao and they had to bring on Calabria because they were chasing the game and trying to beat Bologna. It was Bologna, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was Bologna.
And they drew 1-1. So they did have to bring them on eventually, but that none of them started. Not a single one of them. So these two teams have shuffled their packs appropriately. They've obviously got both eyes on this fixture. Napoli have the fortune of doing so because they're so far clear at the top. Milan took a bit of a risk, and it could yet backfire in that extremely tight top 4 race. We'll see. But this Milan team are going to be pretty stubborn. They were very good in the first leg in patches. They can be the sort of team that just feels so obstinate and so difficult to beat that it just drives you up the wall. And Maignan in goal is so good. Like, even if you can get past the block, Maignan is so difficult to get past as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be genuinely fantastic. And do you know what, mate? I've got it in my head that this is going to extra time. I think maybe Napoli are going to win this in 90 minutes. They're going to win it, but only by 1, and it's going to go the distance.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you how you're going to sort it panning out. So
2-1, and goes to extra time.
Well, yeah, okay, let's have this from Sahib, who says this is a true test of Napoli's mettle. They've been known to, in fact, renowned for choking in these situations in the recent past. Well, not quite this situation, Sahib, because they've never been in a Champions League quarter-final before, which is an important thing to note. But I do agree, and I do take your point that the big moments have been Napoli's downfall in recent years. Can they finally turn it around in what is their best season in a long time? It's also probably worth noting with this that whatever happens here, this is going to be Napoli's best season in a long time. If they go out to Milan in the Champions League, it won't take away from the fact that their first ever quarter-final appearance and what is going to be a Scudetto title will be Napoli's best season since 1990 at the very least, if not better. Even Maradona didn't take Napoli to the quarterfinals of the European Cup, as it was known back then. He took them to the UEFA Cup, sure, but not to this level of Europe's elite and premier tournament. Now, things have changed and there are different elements to all of this stuff, but I think this is Napoli's best season, whatever happens here tonight. But I can see them coming through this. I think Osimhen coming back is just so big, and it's such it changes the pace of this so, like, irrevocably. Like, the whole thing is changed by Victor Osimhen's appearance within this game.
Yes.
And I think it opens up everything for the likes of Chucky Lozano, for the likes of Kvara. Suddenly they have those moments. Suddenly they have a runner going beyond them. Suddenly they have those kind of spaces that are opening up that they can exploit. And I just wonder, we've seen Milan beat Napoli 4-0. at the Maradona without Osimhen. We've seen them beat Napoli 1-0 at San Siro without Osimhen. We saw Osimhen single-handedly pretty much tear Milan apart in the first half of this season at San Siro. I'm going to suggest that he's going to be the difference again.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I mean, obviously, I mean, what a player. I think that this Kimless defensive line is such a wild card. It's potentially as big a deal as Osimhen returning, because you just don't know what it's going to look like. And as a result of that, I don't think Napoli keep a clean sheet. I do think they'll break through, but yeah, I think it's going to be. I think Leao's going to get some space, or someone's going to do something, and they're going to force it through to extra time. I mean, and from there, I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
Genuinely, who knows?
If it goes to extra time, it's anybody's guess. We can't be held responsible for making those guesses at that point, I'm afraid. So that's what we'll leave it at for that game. And let's come on to Chelsea against Real Madrid. This is the XG timeline from the first leg, and as you can see, this is brutal. This is brutal reading if you're a Chelsea fan. It's pretty sustainable reading if you're a Real Madrid fan. This is 3 on the XG chart. And the only question they will be asking, I imagine, Real Madrid fans about this is, how do we not score more? It's one of those games that was one-sided. Kind of Chelsea started okay, first 7 minutes or so. And then and I'm not just talking about the XG timeline here, just genuinely in the game, they started okay. And then it just fell apart. And the moment that Real Madrid took the lead, Chelsea's game plan imploded. None of the things that were supposed to go towards what Frank Lampard would assume was trying to do were even in play anymore. And Chelsea looked incapable of changing the rhythm of this game. And this is what's happened. This is the story of Chelsea for some time now, not just under Lampard, but it just felt like there were no solutions, no ideas. Obviously, Chilwell then got sent off. And this looks like it. Obviously, Chelsea have some history in this competition. Real Madrid have a lot of history in this competition. But there is just nothing about that first leg or any Chelsea performance I've seen under Frank Lampard that suggests that they can turn this around.
I got nothing to add. I like you have nothing. I don't have anything at all for Chelsea here. Like, they're against the greatest team in the history of this competition, and they're 2-0 down, and they look dreadful. Like, they've lost all their games under Frank Lampard so far. Played 3, lost 3. It's really they're really bad. So I'm glad there's another game on at the same time.
Yeah.
I wish I had more for you, but I genuinely don't. Like, look at that. Do you expect that to happen again? Probably.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, the only thing that I can suggest that Chelsea fans can take heart from is that Vinicius Jr. might be absent. But that's it. That's all I've got for Chelsea fans. And Marnie's just said, look, this is peak Champions League Real Madrid. The English commentators slated Real Madrid, and in all honesty, spoke a lot of pure rubbish to try and create a narrative Chelsea are finished. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's elements that this Real Madrid side aren't as strong or as stable as they have been in recent years. I don't think this Real Madrid side is as good as last year's Real Madrid side, I'll be honest. But against the Chelsea side of this ineptitude, I just can't see anything but Real Madrid strolling to victory. Look, football's a funny game, and we can be proved wrong. Armin says maybe a miracle. Yeah, like, yes, okay, maybe a miracle. But Alex says Lampard is not the man to lead Chelsea to a Champions League win against Real Madrid. Yep. And Treasure says 2-0 is most dangerous scoreline. Ask the Gunners. I'm sure that there was plenty of joy in posting that. But yes, but there's just nothing that I can see. And look, Chelsea could come out and prove me wrong at the Bridge tonight. But there is nothing I can say that is going to convince me, you, Sam, or anybody listening here. I think that Real Madrid are going to not be in the semi-finals. Ayush says, I'm a Real Madrid fan. If Chelsea scores first, it's game on, though. Yes, apart from Chelsea scored first at the weekend and then got battered by Brighton. Like, I just don't have anything. I don't have anything. Look, this is Chelsea's shot map for 3 games under Frank Lampard. This what, 2, 3? decent chances across the course of 3 games. One was against a struggling Wolves side. The goal is a deflection on the edge of the box against Brighton, and the other is against Real Madrid. There's nothing that you look at that and go, cool. Yeah, there's lots to be excited about here. It just doesn't look like Chelsea have any cohesion for you. This is what I did want to talk about, though, and it's Mykhailo Mudryk. Because Mykhailo Mudryk has been a thorn in Real Madrid's side before, playing on the left-hand side of a 3 for Shakhtar Donetsk. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so we can dial into it a tad. This is 4 games on the left-hand side. Okay, the Shakhtar versus Real Madrid games in this year's group stage and last year's group stage in the Champions League. This, on the other hand, is his last 5 games for Chelsea. And it's
some
stunning.
Subs, right? Some sub
there have been
appearances.
some sub appearances, but there have been a couple of starts in there as well. The minutes difference isn't all that much. Like right. Between the 4 games he played for Shakhtar against Real Madrid and his last 5 games for Chelsea, there's not all that much difference. The difference in his ball retention, the difference in him getting the ball and driving into these areas that he's so good at. And you look at this area just in front of that left-hand side of the box. What we saw for Mykhailo Mudryk at Shakhtar was that ability to pick the ball up on the halfway line and drive towards the edge of the box and get off shots. We saw that wonderful goal against Celtic, obviously. But not only that, that's been kind of a hallmark of his game. Look how little of that there is in these Chelsea attacks. And it's because he's being asked to do something completely different. And I know there's going to be people here who will say, well, Chelsea aren't Shakhtar. They're not playing quite as much on the counter. And that's fine. Yeah. But Chelsea were playing on the counter against Brighton because Brighton had all the ball and all the territory. And he still wasn't able to pick the ball up in these areas and make it count. And I think it's genuinely quite worrying that Mudryk is, yes, adapting fine. I'm not worried about him as a long-term footballer, but that Chelsea aren't able to get anything like the Mudryk spaces opening up for him that we know that he thrives in.
Sure. A couple of things here, really. I mean, first of all, Shakhtar, reactive or not, it's a fair comment, but it doesn't excuse the whole thing. Shakhtar obviously looked for Mykhailo Mudryk early and often and wanted to try and get the ball to him as like the out ball because he was the best dribbler and he was, the best player. And Chelsea haven't really done that. He hasn't got a grip on this team for a start. So doesn't command a place in the team. And therefore, he doesn't command that the ball goes to him. We look for Mykhailo. There's none of that because half the time he's not even there. So that's fair enough. Really, the attack and the possession is going through Enzo Fernandez, who amidst the Chelsea shambles is playing pretty well, basically, because he's a very good player. But also he can get the ball off the centre-backs. He can always be involved. And Enzo he's pinging some passes, but he's sharing it around. He's looking for options. It kind of goes back to what we spoke about earlier a little bit here with Kvara and how without Osimhen occupying players and making runs and pinning centre-backs, it's harder for him to drift across the pitch and find his way into the game. Chelsea don't have any strikers. So Mudryk doesn't really have anybody to take players away or open up spaces for him when he does drive with the ball because Kai Havertz isn't going to do that. Raheem Sterling doesn't really do it. Like they just don't have a legitimate striker. And that has its problems in the form of goals scored, where there have been very few. It has its problems in terms of the shot map we looked at, in terms of the shot locations. It also has its knock-on effects on the wingers and the creators and how much space they have to play, how much space they have to drive in. So Mudryk, like a lot of people, is just waiting for Chelsea to sign a striker, to try and deflect some attention as he tries to work his way into this team. If he plays tonight, he's going to have a tough one because presumably Federico Valverde will be across that area of the pitch, either from right wing or right centre mid. He'll be helping Carvajal.
Is the only question, because if Vinicius is out, then does Fede Valverde get shifted to the other wing? That would be my only question mark over that, because Rodrigo has been playing well in that kind of right-hand side. And I don't know who steps in on the left wing, unless it's Marco Asensio, but I wouldn't hugely assume it would be. If Vinny Jr. is out, it might be Valverde just in a slightly shifted role.
Maybe. I mean, I personally would put Valverde on the right, move Rodrigo to the left, and then obviously use one of the amazing midfielders that they don't have to use. Like, play Tchouaméni.
Oh, what a shame.
Oh, no. So, yes, it may upset Rodrigo's rhythm a little bit, but he likes playing on the left, so that would be okay.
Yeah, okay.
That would be okay. But yeah, it's difficult. Like, Chelsea right now, how do you play this game? Common and conventional wisdom would say you cannot afford to let this game get away from you early doors by conceding. So while you do really want to come out the blocks and, get Stamford Bridge going, if you concede in the first 15 minutes, you are done. So the wisdom would be, well, you need to stay relatively cagey and make sure you settle into the game and make sure you don't concede. And then as the half wears on and into the second half, maybe try and push it. And your best bet is finding a way into extra time. But that's very difficult because at some point you are going to have to open yourself up and you are going to have to go for it. And as soon as you do that, chaotic game state. As soon as it's chaotic game state, Real Madrid run rings around everyone and score 4. So it's an impossible balance for Frank Lampard here. And I do sympathise with him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's also this fella. This is just the knockout stages. 3 games, 4 goals for Karim Benzema. There was a little bit of chat, obviously, in the group stages when he failed to find the net that Karim Benzema was a little bit off it. Obviously, he was injured in a few of those games as well. But this is pretty sensational. It's just Benzema getting in the right areas as games open up and making it count. He's obviously scored in every one of the knockout stage games that Real Madrid have played in so far. And I mean, it'd be a brave man not to bet on that continuing this evening, wouldn't it?
Very brave indeed. Yeah, I'm interested to see what Who Scored got for the predicted lineups. Are they rolling Thiago Silva out of the cryogenic chamber?
They are. They're rolling. Yeah. They're rolling Thiago out of the chamber. They've gone to a 4 at the back for Chelsea, with Cucurella playing left back in the absence of Chilwell, who's obviously suspended.
Yeah,
Reece James. Well, he'll be glad not to be seeing Vinny Jr. if he is, in fact, not in those spaces. Anyway, they've got Rodrigo on the left, as you said, and Valverde sticking on that right-hand side. I think this looks relatively sensible from where Chelsea are, but I don't know if they will try and continue with a back 3. Whether that's possible or not with the injuries and suspensions, I do not know. But this does seem like probably their best shot at doing things. This kind of Enzo, Kovacic, Kante midfield hasn't been brilliant, but I think it's been better than what was there before. And up front, who knows? Who knows what Lampard will do up front? I mean, I imagine that Felix will start. I think he will start Sterling because he likes Sterling. And whether it's Kai Havertz playing in the inside or Mudryk on the outside, anybody's guess, isn't it? Yeah. Chelsea are too much of a question mark for anyone to be like, oh, that's exactly how they'll start. But I think this is probably just about right from where Real Madrid is sitting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Madrid's problems, like selection problems, are all good problems. They're like, oh, which midfield combination, apart from Vinny, which combination would we like? Do we feel the need to put Valverde into midfield or push him up? Like, do we want to play Asensio? Who do you want to play at left back? Apart from Vinny, it's all like it's kind of dealer's choice, and it's problems, but they're good problems. You can deploy your troops as in a way that kind of combats the game that you expect to face. And then from Chelsea's perspective, like on paper, I think we said this last week, on paper, it's a really good team, but it doesn't work. Like the team doesn't actually function properly. And they do have the option of going back to a back 3. You could you actually can't put Badiashile in because he's suspended. Is Koulibaly okay? I think is he injured as well? Maybe they do have to do this. Yeah, and they can't play Badiashile, right? So this makes
someone pulled Lewis Hall back in. He started a game once, didn't he? He can play left wing back while Cucurella plays left side. Yeah, I think it's going to be a back 4 just because of the injury list.
Yeah, and on paper, like Kovacic, Fernandes, Kante, brilliant. But Kante is just back from a long layoff, and he's not quite there. Enzo is wading through the mess on his own at times, and is doing his best. Kovacic.
Not great at the moment. Yeah.
I mean, like I saw someone tweet the other day, Kovacic has checked out for the season. And I was like, oh, I think that might be true. Like he's not quite there, whether it's a physical issue or whether it's just like...
he's been asked to play a lot of games. Like that's the other thing with it. So in the absence of Kante as well, he's been asked to change his game up a little bit. There's a lot to kind of look at.
There is, yeah.
In that regard.
And with a player like that, I'm always a bit... I want to try and be a little bit kinder where possible because Kovacic has played. It's a full season. It's a tiring season. He played a lot of World Cup games. Croatia, played the maximum number of games. Kovacic was a really important part of that team.
They also went to extra time a lot.
Yeah, like you have to try and factor this in. Like he might just be exhausted, and it would be fair enough if he is, but he hasn't quite looked right, and that's the important thing because he's not playing to the best of his ability. And if they can't get these players playing, that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We're going to finish with the last question from Treasury. He says, speaking of Chelsea strikers, who would be their option in the transfer market? Osimhen. And if so, do they have a better chance in getting him than United do? I would caveat this question, Sam, and I'm going to throw it to you. But is the answer we have to see who Chelsea employs a manager before we start worrying about who their striker is going to be?
Always the case, isn't it? I mean, we need to know because if they went for someone like Nagelsmann, he might not even want a striker. If he went for someone like Luis Enrique, then he's used all sorts of different types, but very often goes without one. Maybe that's by necessity though, because Spain don't have any, or they just have Morata. But yeah, somebody else like a more
respect on Gerard Moreno's name, please.
Sorry, yeah, but he's always injured. That's the problem, isn't it? That's his only problem. And a more conventional name might want a more conventional type. I mean, I get the impression that Osimhen is going to be out of their range. Like, I don't know all their financials, but if you spend 650 million in a season, I don't care if you've amortized it over 1 billion years. Surely, at some point, you are going to have to stop spending 100 million pounds per player. Like, it's just logic. So I feel like they can't really go into that market, and because they likely won't have Champions League football, Osimhen is better off elsewhere anyway.
I saw a link this week with a 68 million euros, let's say 60 million pound move for Rasmus Højlund.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone should be spending 60 million pounds on Rasmus Højlund just yet. Much as I really like him, much as I like his skill set, and much as I think he's excellent, I think it's a little bit premature for anyone to be chucking 50 mil plus on Højlund until he's had another season at the top level. But we will see.
Yeah, he's come half a season at Sturm Graz and 3/4 of a season at Atalanta. I pumped the brakes on that one a little bit. I know Chelsea aggressively pursue good youth players, but this is a bit much. It's really tough. It's really tough to find a player. I mean, what about Harry Kane? I mean, I know, but last year of his deal,
no chance. Why would you move? Like, as in crossing the divide from Chelsea to Tottenham is tough enough, I think, generally, without it being Harry Kane, who I think if he is going to move, needs to get out of London. It'd be a bit mad for him to stay in London. Also, I don't think that Chelsea offer Harry Kane much, apart from maybe shed loads of money that he doesn't kind of already have. He's like, oh, you want me to come and play in a side that makes no sense, that basically is listless and feels like it's being kind of run really bad at the top. Oh wait, I've already got that. That's just where I am. So yeah, maybe there isn't much in that move, but we'll see. I think there's a Vlahovic. There's a Vlahovic here from Armani here who says, but I think he's talking about the fact that he would like Vlahovic at the Emirates. Vlahovic seems to me like the striker that Chelsea might go and buy for like 40-50 million. To kind of bail Juve out of a financial hole, who has got some pedigree but has had a tough time at Juve, who they wouldn't be that sad, I don't think, to see the back of after the last year and a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Vlahovic ends up at the Bridge.
Yeah, was going to be my next suggestion, really. And Juventus usually wouldn't be looking to get rid of an asset like that, but financially, it may be dictated to them this summer. So that's a good shout. He's got enough pedigree, I think, and enough profile to work, and he's definitely a number 9. And the final name we'll add in as the absolute wild card is the man that is already on their books. What happens to Romelu Lukaku? And when a new manager comes in, who is it? And what will he make of Romelu Lukaku? Because I don't think they'll accept Inter offering, can we have it back on loan for another 10 million euros? At some point, you've got to stop doing that. And it might be this summer. And I'm not ruling it out. Lukaku remontada at the Bridge. I'm not ruling it out.
Armando Broja season next year, I think, is probably what we're all hoping on. All right, finally, I'm going to just say this for Aiden. He says, any advice to someone that likes to dual screen on UCL nights? I like to dual screen on UCL nights. Yeah, do it. Aiden, what you do tonight is you stick Real Madrid, Chelsea on the little screen in front of you, and you put Napoli, Milan on the big screen up top. You keep an eye on Napoli, Milan, and if Chelsea score first, then you can keep an eye on the other game. If Real Madrid score first, you may as well turn it off. That would be my attack on the two games, right? In fact, that's exactly how I'm going to attack the two games tonight. So there you have it. There's my advice for dual screening on Champions League
No.
nights. And with that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. And all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much for all of your questions and comments as ever. Thank you so much for all of you watching here live on YouTube and also watching in playback mode a little bit later before these games. Make sure you're subscribed to the Ranks FC podcast and to this YouTube channel. We'll be back tomorrow to preview those games and again afterwards to talk about all the Champions League games. There's Europa League previews on Thursday as well. UE Ultras will be back. And then we've got loads coming up through the rest of the week. So make sure you are subscribed to all things Ranks FC. It's all in the description. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Ty, the Rank God.
Cheers, mate. Enjoy the games.
Indeed. I've been Jack Collins, Knave of Hearts. Enjoy the Champions League tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that you enjoy yourselves and we will see you tomorrow. Take it easy. Peace.